just over the line from Massachusetts. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The date is May 7th, 1901, just before dawn. Just about, sky showing some streaks of light over there in the back of our mountain. Morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go. Well, now I'll show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Cutting across it over there to the left is the railroad tracks. Across the tracks is Polish Town. You know, foreign people that come here to work in the mill, a couple of Canuck families, and the Catholic Church. The Congregational Church is over there, Presbyterians across the street, Methodist and Unitarian over there. Baptist is down the holler by the river. Next to the post office is the town hall. Jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from those steps there. All along Main Street, there's a row of stores, hitching posts, and horse blocks in front of them. First automobile's going to come around in about 5 years. Belongs to banker Cartwright, our town's richest citizen, who lives up in the big white house up there on the hill. Here's the grocery store and Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town managed to look into those stores once a day. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. And this is the back door. And here are a couple trellises for those who feel we have to have scenery. And this is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, hollyhock, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. In those days, our newspaper came out twice a week, the Grover's Corner Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. And this is Mrs. Webb's garden, just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers too. And right here is a big butternut tree. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable has ever come out of it as far as we know. The earliest dates on the tombstones up there in the cemetery say 1670. There's Grovers and Cartwrights, Gibbses and Herseys, same names as around here now. Well, as I said, it's early morning, and the only lights on are in a cottage over by the tracks, where Polish monks just had twins. And in the Joe Crowell house, where Joe Jr.'s getting ready to deliver the morning paper. And at the depot, where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 545 for Boston. There she is. Naturally, out in the country, all around, lights have been on now for some time, on with milking and so on. But town folks sleep late. So, another day's begun. Well, there's Doc Gibbs, coming down Main Street, coming back from that baby case. And there's Mrs. Gibbs coming downstairs to get her breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, a long time ago, in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there. Pneumonia. Oh, but her body was brought back here. She's up there now in the cemetery with a whole message of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. Oh, there's Miss Webb come downstairs to get breakfast too. That's Doc Gibbs. Got the call to Polish Town at 1:30 this morning. And here comes Joe Crowell delivering Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Good morning, Doc.
Morning, Joe.
Do you want to pick me up?
Oh, yes, I'll take it.
Has somebody been sick, Doc?
Oh, no, Parents Twins over in Polish Town. I know what it's about too. My stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you will get more than 3 hours sleep. Thank you. I don't know what's going to become of you. I wish you could go away someplace for a rest. I think it would do you good.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
I declare, Frank, you have got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George?
George, look sharp!
Yes, Pop?
Don't you hear your mother calling you?
Wally, you'll be late for school.
It's up upstairs, take 40 weeks.
Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself. Mom, what dress shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his sleep. I washed mine with blue gingham for you special.
Mom, I hate that dress.
Oh, what's up with you?
Every day, go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Ma, George is going so with me.
I'll come up there and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
Got a mill in town here. Makes blankets. Cartwrights own it, and it's sprung up a fortune. Children, I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have any goblins like rolls. Those country road. That's a fact. Wally, put away your book. Oh, Mom, I didn't walk in the wall up here. You know the rules as well as I do. No books at table. Now, as for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I got mommy in. And the writing on the school page. I've wonderful memories.
Eat your breakfast.
I'll speak to your father about it after he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week is enough for a boy your age. I declare, I don't know how you spend it all.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
Well, I don't see if Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, I do think it's a good idea to spend some every now and then.
Mom, you know what I love most in the world? Do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
There's the first bell. I gotta go. Walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull up those pants in the knee.
Tell Miss Foster I send her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Mom.
And you look real nice, Rebecca. Now pick up your feet. Here, chickie, chickie. No, you go away, you. Here, chickie, chickie. What's the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you ever do. You belong to me. Where'd you come from? Don't be scared. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Well, good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Oh, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. Told Charles I didn't know if I go to choir rehearsal tonight.
Can you try singing over your voice?
Yes, but I can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Oh, well, let me help you. He's been good this year.
I decided to put 40 quarts if it kills me. Children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've just got to tell you something. Because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
But Julia Gibbs.
Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come and see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs. And then he wormed his way into my parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
By Julia Gibbs.
He did. That old thing. It was so big, I didn't know where I was going to put it. And I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know. $350? What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know. It sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself that if I ever got the chance,
So how does Doctor feel about it?
well, I did beat about the bush a little and said that if I got my legacy, that's what I call it, I'd make him take me.
Oh, what'd he say?
Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said, it might of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's got a mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I have spent walking over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it out like who was going to buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean.
I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only, it seems to me that once in your life before you die, you'll have to see a country where they don't talk in English, and they don't even want to.
Thank you very much, ladies. Now we'll skip a few hours. But first we want a little more information about our town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I've asked Professor Willard of our State University to sketch in a few brief details of our past history here. Professor Willard, may I introduce Professor Willard of our State University? Just a few brief notes, thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners, let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pliocene layer of the Appalachian Range. Some of the oldest land in the world, I may say. We're very proud of that here. Of course, there are some more recent outcroppings, some sandstone showing through a level of Devonian basalt, and some vestiges of Mesozoic shale. But these are, of course, much more recent, no more than 200–300 million years old. Some interesting fossils, I may say unique fossils, have been found about 2 miles north of the Peckham Farm, in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They may be seen in the museum at the university at any time. Any reasonable time, that is. Shall I read you some of Professor Kruger's notes on the meteorological...
Well, I'm afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here, you know.
Anthropological data.
Yes.
Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes, no evidence before the 10th century of this era, now entirely disappeared. Oh, possible traces in 3 families. Since then, in the early 17th century, the migration of English blue-eyed brachiocephalic stock and some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard?
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Oh, just a moment, Professor.
Oh, yes. The population of the town is now 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, for a total of 3,149. Birth rate and mortality constant by Macpherson's gauge 6.032.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Willard. Now, the political and social report. Editor Webb? Mr. Webb? Oh, he'll be here in just a minute. He just got his hand while seeking an apple. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Webb. Charles, everybody's waiting. Mr. Webb is the publisher and editor of the Grover's Corners Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selection. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, a sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most. Probably a lot duller. But our young people seem to like it here well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school settle down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask Mr. Webb any questions?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, man, I don't know what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down in Ellery Greenall's stable, holler some. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're always having remorses. Every evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home here. Except in the medicine chest. Right good for snake bites, you know. Always was.
Is anyone in town aware
Hold
of
on forward, will you, where we can all hear you? What was it you wanted to ask Mr. Webb?
Is there no one in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes. Everybody is. Something terrible. Seems like they spend most of their time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
So then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting for a way the diligent and intelligent can rise to the top, and the lazy and quarrelsome sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meantime, we do all we can to take care of those who can't help themselves. And those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Webb.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in the Growers' Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense you mean. Come to think of it, there are some girls that play the piano over at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like to watch the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning. And we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. And we watch the change of seasons. Yes, everybody knows about them. But those other things, you're right, man. There ain't much. Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, and Handel's Largo, we all know that, and Whistler's Mother. Those are just about as far as we go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's 2 o'clock. All 2,642 have had their lunches, and all the dishes have been washed. The children have gone back to school, and there's a buzzing and humming coming from the buildings. Only a few buggies on Main Street, horses dozing at the hitching post. There's an early afternoon calm about the town. You remember what that's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office tapping people and making them say, ah. And there's Mr. Webb cutting his lawn over there. One man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower.
I can't go to my homecoming, Mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
God, I never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Excuse me, Miss Force.
You go out and play in the field, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Mrs. Force. Hello, Emily.
Hello?
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corker made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily, from my window up there, I can just see your head nice when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you must like school.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegram from your window to mine. And once in a while you can give me a kind of hit or two on one of those algebra problems. Oh, I don't need the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just a little hint.
Oh, I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me. I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I think it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer. And my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm, and if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, I better get going to the baseball field. Thanks for the talking. Good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come and help me string these beans for the winter. Well, George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Like he's growing up. How old would George be?
Oh, I don't know.
Let's see, he must be almost 16.
Mom, I made a speech in class today and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. I was like so up for school. I'm going to make speeches all my life. Mom, are these big enough?
Try to get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me questions serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Well, of course you are. Both my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You've got a nice, young, pretty face. I've never heard of such foolishness.
Mama never tells the truth about anything.
I am telling you.
Mama, were you pretty?
Well, yes. I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town. Next to Mamie Cartwright.
But Mama, you gotta say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody? To get people interested in me?
Emily, stop. You make me tired. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Mama, you don't help at all.
Now I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for borrow, sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, we're putting in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a kind of glue, a silicate glue, that'll make them keep 1,000, 2,000 years. We're putting in a Bible, and a copy of the Constitution of the United States, and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and the only thing we know about them is the names of kings, and copies of wheat contracts, and the sales of slaves. Yes, every night, all those families sat down to supper, and the father came home from his work, and smoke went up the chimney, same as here. And even in Greece and Rome, the only thing we know about the real life of people is what we can piece together from the joking poems and the comedies that they wrote for the theater back then. So, I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, so people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. You see what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up and in our marrying and in our living and in our dying. We'll go back to Grover's Corners now. It's evening. You can hear the choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork, and the day's running down like a tired clock.
We will do that again. Ladies, please was no miracle. While I remember, how many of you will be available to sing at Fred Hersey's wedding next Tuesday afternoon? Raise your hands. That's fine. That's good. Thank you. Now, art thou weary? Art thou languid? Ladies and gentlemen, that's a question. Now let's hear it talk.
Oh, George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa.
Remember, Sunday, in the second verse, do it very softly, and then let it die out. Now, again.
Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you minutes. George, how old are you?
Me? Well, I'm 16. Almost 17.
What is it you want to do after school's over?
Why, you know, Pa. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you, to get up early and milk and feed the stock, and you'll be able to hoe and hay all day.
Sure I will. What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, when I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was your mother out chopping wood. And there you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I guess she just gave up on asking you. Just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals and put on the clothes she thinks nice for you. And you run off and play baseball. Like she's some hired girl to keep around the house, but you don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. There's a handkerchief, son. George, I decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's the sort of present you give her. But because you're getting older. And I imagine there are lots of things you must find to spend it on.
Thanks, Pa.
But let's see tomorrow's payday. Together, Probably Rebecca will feel she ought to have more, too. Wonder what we keep keeping your mother. Choir practice never was this late before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in that old choir anyway. She hasn't got any more voice than an old crow. And her traipsing around the streets at this hour of the night. Just about time for you to retire, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mrs. Foster. I'll be sure to tell Mr. Webb I know the one to put it in the paper.
My, it's late.
Good night, Irma.
Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Oh, Bertha Webb, look at that moon, will you? Potato weather for sure.
Well, naturally, I didn't want to say anything about it before in front of the others. But now that we're alone, well, really, it's the worst scandal this town ever had.
What?
Simon Stimpson.
Oh, now, Luella.
But Julia, to have the organist of a church drink and drunk year after year.
Luella.
Oh, Julia, you know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella. We all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through, and Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in that job, well, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it. But it's getting worse.
Oh, no, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you. It doesn't happen near so often. Oh, my.
real good time.
You're late enough.
Oh, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stopped in the corner gossip with a lot of hens.
Now, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell my heliotrope in the moonlight. Come on. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read it. Too new. What were the girls gossiping about this time?
Oh, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Simpson's far gone, was he?
Worse than I've ever seen him. How's that going to end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I suppose I know more about Simon Simpson's affairs than anybody in this town. Some people ain't made for small town life. I don't know how that went, but there's nothing we can do with either. Whoa! Get in.
No, Frank, not yet. I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
Well, I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real rest and change, and if I get my legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Oh, surely there's just no sense in talking about that.
Frank Gibbs, you are unreasonable.
Come on, it's getting late. First thing you know, you catch cold. Oh, I gave George peace of mind tonight. Reckon he'll have it wood chopped. For a little while, anyway. No. Get upstairs.
There's just always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All the people up that part of town do.
They'll get certified. That's the trouble with them. They haven't got anything fit to burgle. Everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window.
Can I just look for a minute?
Use your own window.
Okay. There's no moon up there. George, do you know what I think? Do you? I think the moon's getting nearer and nearer. And someday, there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer, then the men who sit up all night with telescopes would tell us about it. And it'd be all in the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on Canada, South America, and half the world?
Well, probably is.
9:30. Most of the lights in town are out. There's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Bill.
Evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a moon.
Oh, yeah.
All quiet tonight?
Well, Simon Simpson's rolling around a little. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. Oh, there he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to be settled down for the night pretty well. Good evening. Yes, most of the town settled down for the night. I guess we'd better do the same. Can I walk a long ways with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's going, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. At least he's not more than 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet, Papa. The moonlight's just so wonderful. And the smell just gives heliotropes. Can you smell it?
young Frank. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold within a week.
I remember my wedding morning, Julia.
Don't start that, Frank.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. Thought I'd made a mistake for sure. When you were coming down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. But the only trouble was that I'd never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church, marrying a total stranger.
How do you think I felt, Frank? Weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I made something for you.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast.
Well, they tried to make it. I had to do something.
How do you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the owls struck off.
I get a shock. Every time I think of George sitting down to get family, that great gambling thing. Tell you, Julia, there's nothing so terrifying in the world as the sun. The relationship of father and son is the damnedest, awkwardest.
Well, mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have lots of troubles, for sure. But that's none of our business. Everybody has a right to their own troubles.
People are meant to live 2 by 2 in this world. It ain't natural to be lonesome.
Julia, you know one of the things I was scared of when I married you?
Go along with you.
I was afraid we didn't have material for conversation more than last us a few weeks. I thought we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, here we are conversing for 40 years, 20 years now, without any noticeable embarrassments.
Well, good weather bad weather, tain't very choice, but I always find something to say. Did you hear Rebecca stirring about upstairs?
No. Only day of the year Rebecca hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I got the idea she's crying.
Oh, Lord sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 4 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Oh, I'm just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Will you put your rubbers on? It's raining torrents out. You don't leave this house without you're prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch your death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, do what your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but while you're in my house, you live wisely, thank you. But perhaps Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Well, take your cup of coffee
You bet,
first.
you bet. Morning, Mother Webb.
Well, good morning, George. Gracious, you frightened me. Now, George, I hate to say it. You can come in here a minute out of the rain, but you realize, George, I can't let you in.
Why not?
Well, George, you know as well as I do, the groom can't see the bride on the wedding day, not until he sees her in church.
Oh, that's just a superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George. And don't you be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How is Emily?
She hasn't woken up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep.
Well, no wonder. It was up till all hours, sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do, George. You sit down here for a minute with Mr. Webb and drink this here cup of coffee. While I go upstairs and see she doesn't come down and surprise you. Now there's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
Fine. Mr. Webb, what common sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, George, on the wedding morning, the girl's head's full of, clothes, one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yes, I had never thought of that.
The girl's apt to be a mite nervous on her wedding day.
Gee, I wish the person could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way, George, but it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who build up weddings, my boy. For a while now, women have it all their own.
Well, I couldn't possibly.
So I took the opposite of his advice. And I've been happy ever since. So let that be a lesson to you, George. Never ask advice of anyone on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you raising chickens on your farm?
Yes. Uncle Luke's never really gone in for chickens much. But I can figure out
George,
we
look
got something.
in my office on the FIO system of raising chickens. I wish you'd read it. I'm thinking of beginning myself in a small way in the backyard. I'm going to put an incubator in the cellar so that I can...
Charles Webber, you're talking about that incubator again. I thought you two be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you'd like to give the boys some good advice, I'll go upstairs.
George, Emily's not coming down to eat for breakfast. Now she sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay her eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you didn't know about that older superstition.
No, what do you mean, Charles?
Since the caveman, no bridegroom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding. Or near it. Now remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now I have to interrupt again here. You see, you want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like this begin. Well, you know how it is. You're 21 or 22, and you make some decisions, and then whoosh, you're 70. And you've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady by your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How did all this begin? Well, George and Emily are going to show us now the conversation they had when they first knew, well, as the saying goes, that they were meant for each other. But before they do that, I want you to try to remember what it was like when you were very young, and particularly the days when you were first in love. You were like a person sleepwalking, and you couldn't quite see the street you were walking on, and you couldn't quite hear everything being said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please? They'll be coming out of high school now at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected the president of the senior class. And this is June. That means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily has just been elected secretary and treasurer. Goodbye, Emily. Remember your arithmetic. Ah, yeah, there they are coming down Main Street now.
I can't, Louise. I gotta go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine! Ernestine! Can you come over tonight and do Latin? Is that sister the worst thing? Oh, we'll take what we have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Emily, can I carry your girls home for you?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Excuse me 1 minute, Emily. Say, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice. And give Herb some long highlights.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Oh, goodbye. I'm awful glad you were elected too, Uncle.